Hi, everybody. Joe Cioffi here. Weather in 5 days and 5 minutes. The Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast will be back Sunday night at 7:35 p.m. And by then, we'll be talking about big wind for Monday, where we're going to see probably some gust of 50 miles an hour or more. So remember, that's Sunday night at 7:35 p.m. In the meantime, we have watches that are going up. Models have been coming in a little more bullish as far as the rainfall is concerned. And we also have to remember that the ground is utterly saturated. Many areas since last Saturday have picked up between 4 and 6 inches of rain. So it's not going to take much to cause some additional flooding. We have flood watches up for much of New Jersey, counties in southeastern Pennsylvania, and also Orange County in the Hudson Valley. I suspect that we might see additional uh, watches go up if the nighttime guidance continues to come in bullish with rainfall. We also have winter storm watches up for parts of southwestern New York, and also the first wind advisories up there for north central New York. We've got winter storm watches, and for northeastern New York as well as northern Vermont, northern New Hampshire, and into Maine. In Maine, some areas have both flood watches and winter storm watches up. So it's pretty busy across the South. Flood watches from Northwest South Carolina, across much of Georgia and Alabama, back through southern Mississippi, the yellows and reds that you see here as of 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We have flash flood warnings up in parts of central Mississippi. We've got tornado watches up for parts of southeast Louisiana, southern Mississippi, and southwestern Alabama. And all of this playing out with this storm system. One low has already run out ahead up into Illinois. There's a warm sector that is setting up across the Gulf states. In the meantime, we have high pressure in the east that's just barely holding on, but at least it gave us a dry day today with no serious issues. Much of the rest of the country's not doing too bad today. We've got a rather strong high up in the northern plains, so that's keeping the plain states mostly dry. You see this front kind of snakes its way through the southwest. But as far as precipitation is concerned, it's really mostly about this storm system that is moving eastward. The satellite loop, but once it starts moving, which hopefully will be soon, there it goes. Dry in the northeast and northern mid-Atlantic states. We've got some high clouds now coming into Pennsylvania and southern New Jersey, down into Virginia and North Carolina. You can see the thunderstorms. These are all lightning strikes that are getting picked up here by the satellite as rain and thunderstorms move slowly to the east, and this whole storm system is translating to the northeast. Not much going on in the west today. And again, the northern plains dry. A lot of leftover clouds going on in the central plains. And checking out the radar, you can see it's fairly loaded in Mississippi and Alabama. Rain now is pushing up into northern Georgia and into Tennessee and North Carolina, as well as Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, and through the Great Lakes. We also have some showers and some thunderstorms back in parts of Oklahoma, some scattered precip in Colorado and New Mexico, and a little bit of rain coming in to the Pacific Northwest. The Storm Prediction Center for the rest of today has a slight risk across the Gulf states, playing out with those watches we have up. Marginal risk back to East Texas and Southeast Oklahoma, and also into parts of southern Georgia. For tomorrow, we have this is tomorrow into Sunday morning. Slight risk from southern North Carolina, much of South Carolina, the southern half of Georgia to the Florida Panhandle. Marginal risk on the northern end of that, and that comes with a 2 to 5% tornado risk. We also want to point out that SPC, and I figured they would do this, is they push the general thunderstorm potential up all the way into southeastern New England. So that's with that weather front coming eastward, that there might be some convection when it moves through eastern Pennsylvania to southern and southeastern New England late Saturday and for Saturday night. And as far as rainfall is concerned out of this, these are 3 day rainfall amounts, or actually liquid precip amounts, because of the fact that in some areas we are going to see snow up to the north. But we're looking at a half to 3/4 of an inch from Maine down through New York City and southern New England. tails back to actually, let me correct that. It's an inch or more in the light blue that you see in Maine and in southern Connecticut to the Hudson Valley, northern New Jersey to about New York City. The darker blues are 3/4 of an inch. The darkest blue is a half an inch, and you see the rain also up to 3 to 5 inches expected across Alabama and into Georgia with the system as it moves to the east. And it forever rains on the coast of the Pacific Northwest, from Northern California all the way up to Washington State. 3 day rainfalls here are going to be on the order of several inches as well. Now, as far as snow is, well, one other thing. Flash flood risk, a moderate risk of flash flooding this evening from southeast Mississippi northeastward into southwest Georgia, more toward the middle part of the state than the lower part of the state. You see the marginal risk is fairly extensive, running all the way up to Indiana and southern Michigan. Now, for tomorrow, WPC has a marginal risk of flash flooding all the way up to southern New England. They have a little hole in southern New Jersey to southeastern Virginia where they don't expect anything, and there's no risk or very low risk, and a slight risk in the eastern half of South Carolina and pretty much most of the eastern part of North Carolina. So that's their forecast there. And as far as snow is concerned, this is their forecast for at least 2 inches. And you can see the high probabilities. There's going to be lake effect behind this system as it goes by. So we're going to have to pay attention to that. And the southwestern New York and northwest PA, as well as up in central and north central New York, into the Adirondacks, into the northeastern corner of the state, and then across northern Vermont, northern New Hampshire, and northern Maine. We've raised the probability to 4. And you can see there's a lot of areas here. The same areas are pretty much a 50% probability for at least 4. And we even have a few pockets showing up where the probabilities of 8 for the Adirondacks, the northern mountains of Vermont, New Hampshire, and into northwestern parts of Maine. High probabilities there for at least 8. Now, we're going to look at the HRRR. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to widen it out so we can look at the entire East Coast and roll it back. You can see that the rest of today obviously is fine along the eastern seaboard. And then as we move into the overnight hours, the rain moves through Georgia, South Carolina, up the Appalachians into Ohio and Michigan, and points northeastward from there into the Canada side. It looks to me as if two things. The system seems to be coming in a little bit faster, and it's also coming in a little bit further to the east. The first low is just going to run away into Canada. Then we're going to get a second low that's going to develop in the Appalachians and move northeastward. So the rain starts to come into eastern Pennsylvania down into Delaware shortly after lunchtime, reaches New York City by about 4 o'clock or so, and then into southern New England by about 7 or 8 o'clock. And you can see the HRRR is picking up on some rather hefty convection that develops and some heavy rains as it moves through Saturday night into Sunday morning. The back edge, the low is forecast to be somewhere near Sandy Hook. The back edge of the rain is done by 1 or 2 a.m. from New York City west, and then takes a little longer to get out of the way in southeastern New England, probably by daybreak. The next thing that's going to happen is that that low is going to strengthen and the pressure gradient is going to get very tight. I'm going to switch over to the GFS model with this, and you can see a lot of isobars there. You've got a high down in Texas, very strong northwest flow. This is Sunday afternoon, and the gradient actually gets even tighter as that storm deepens in eastern Maine later Sunday night, and particularly during the day Monday, when I think we could certainly see gusts of 40 to 50 miles an hour or more. Ahead of it, the gradient tightens up somewhat, and with the convection, it wouldn't be a shocker if somebody winds up seeing a gust of 40 miles an hour or more during Saturday night. But I think the strongest winds actually are going to wind up being on Monday when the gradient is at its tightest. Good news is that once this rain is done, we are going to be dry for a while. We think the winds will start to drop off a bit on Tuesday, but it'll still be on the breezy side. And then the next opportunity for some rain probably comes at the end of next week as we deal with a weather front and maybe another low that comes out of Texas or the Gulf states and heads on up to the Northeast just in time for St. Patrick's Day. Okay, so we're going to keep you updated on this through the weekend. And again, the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast will be back Sunday night at 7:35 p.m. So have a great Friday evening and a great weekend. Stay safe. We'll see you on Sunday night.